Well, hello there. This is going to be very different from my usual videos. Somebody was complaining to me today that they can't draw. It's something that really annoys me. I looked through the internet for, why can't I draw? It's about talking too much. It's using the right hand side of your brain. What utter nonsense. You have a horse and a crit. Really? It's complete rubbish. Drawing is all about practice. There's a few things that you need to know. I don't have the talent to draw. Drawing is not about talent. When I was at school, there were a couple of kids in my class who could draw. Not brilliantly, but much better than the rest of us. And it puts a lot of kids off. Piss off. But these kids who were talented, they were not the ones who went on to be good at drawing. It was the people who put the work in. I think in my class there were 3 or 4 people. I mean, look at this stuff. This is useless. That's teaching you technique. It's not teaching you how to draw. But the people in my class who actually went on to art college, one of them's actually quite a well-respected artist these days. Anyway, the ones who went on, we weren't the ones with talent. We were the guys who worked at it. How to draw. It's also useless. The information here's garbage. Here's one. How to draw a nose. Now, this is ostensibly kind of correct, but it's teaching you a technique. It's not teaching you the underlying skills. Draw a trapezoid. Not all noses are like that. Draw a tip, it's like a sphere. That's kind of true, but you don't know why. So today, I'm going to show you 2 easy methods. Right, here we are. Here's a can of cola. I stole this image off the internet and I've overlaid it with a grid. Now, this is a method of drawing that anyone can use. There's no such thing as I just can't draw. No, if you can make a mark on a piece of paper and you can measure things, you can bloody well draw. There is no real difficulty involved. What is involved is a lot of practice and knowing what you're doing. Right, why have I put a grid on this? Well, let's zoom in a bit and have a little look-see. Now, you see this square here in the top left where we've just got a tiny bit of the can. What I'm going to do is draw a grid, and I'm just going to concentrate on one square at a time. Effectively, there's a sort of line that runs from almost in the corner to almost in the corner. And that's really all there is to it. Do you think you could draw a line in a square? Of course you bloody can. That means you can draw. Unless you're lacking your arms, anyone can draw. It took me 2 years to really be good at drawing. And most of the learning that I did was took 6 months. 6 months of drawing every single day. Now, that maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but by God, if you want to draw every day for 6 months, you'll know about it. Right, first things first, I'm going to have a cigarette because they're nice. And I've created a grid here in Photoshop. Now, this grid happens to be the exact dimensions. Smoking. See, all I've done there, remember that square we just looked at? I made a dot in approximately the right place, and I made another dot. I drew a little line in between them. I'm on to the next square. I make another dot because I can accurately gauge where the line crosses the grid. I'm going to keep doing this. Just measure it and draw a dot where the can intersects with the grid. It's that simple, and I'm just going to keep doing this over and over and over. Now, you don't have to be amazingly accurate. In fact, a couple of my dots here are a bit shonky, not quite in the right place. And yeah, I'm just going to connect these dots. I'm drawing freehand with a mouse. I'm not using anything special. I do have a graphics tablet, but I'm not using it. I'm drawing this with a mouse. You should do this on a piece of paper. You can get a photograph. You have to draw an extra little dot here because as the can curves round, the body emerges at that point. Now, this is going to look rough as hell, but you'll be surprised at how effective this is. Now, let's have a look at this one. Yeah, get yourself a piece of paper and draw a grid on it. You can always get some graph paper or something with a large grid and use that. Get yourself a photograph and draw a grid over that. Make sure you got the same number of squares and stuff. Look at that line, that's wonky as hell. Doesn't matter. I won't do it, but it doesn't matter. What you are doing is copying the contents of each square, and all I'm doing here is measuring where the outline goes in and out. And I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep going. Drawing is indeed all about practice, but if you use the grid method, you'll be able to get yourself going quite quickly and get pleasing results fairly quickly. Now, it doesn't matter if your drawing is any good. You're not going to produce an amazing drawing straight away, not on your first try. I'm a firm believer that when it comes to writing, you have to write a million words of crap before you'll write anything that's any good. And it's the same with drawing. You will have to do 50 bad drawings before you'll produce something decent. An awful lot of what people concentrate on is technique, and technique is bullshit. Technique is something that you can do after you've learned to draw. So, you see, I've kept going around the outline of the can, constantly looking at the picture and measuring the dots, just where lines enter and exit. And here, just join some of the dots. Ooh, that was shaky as hell, wasn't it? That's what happens when you draw with a mouse. Don't draw with a mouse, draw with a pencil. See, I'm just connecting the dots. Nothing fancy at all. Just keep working round and round. But this really is all about practice. The grid method is good for starting off, but ultimately it actually doesn't teach you the best way of doing things. I am using Photoshop here, but it doesn't matter what you use. Use a pencil and a pad of paper. It's much better. Spend a couple of hours drawing grids on several sheets, and then you can get to drawing without having to worry about that every time. You've got no excuse for not starting. And work from a photograph. If you like, get a grid of lines on some acetate paper. You can go into any printing shop and hand them a grid and say, can you photocopy this onto acetate for me? And they'll do that, and then you can lay that over any picture, any photograph you like, and be able to accurately copy it. Here we go on the other side. That's a bit wonky, but it doesn't matter. As long as your measurements are consistent, you'll be able to get an end result that looks good. Oh, look at that line. That should basically be a straight line. You can draw it with a ruler if you want. I know your teacher at school when you did art classes probably didn't let you use rulers and stuff like that. Forget them. You know, use a ruler if it helps you. Use any tool you like if it helps you. There's even a set of shapes, sort of stationary shapes called French curves or burmesters, and they are funny, curvy things. Yeah, don't worry if you get a line chunky like that, just go over it and over it until you get it right. You can always erase the bits that are wrong. I'll do that. Well, but yeah, you can get these French curves, and they are these weird curvy shapes. The point of them is that they have almost every kind of curve you could want. So after drawing the dots for the top of this can, I could then take a French curve, twist it and turn it until I find a curve that's about right for my dots, and then just draw around that. It really is as easy as that. Okay, now I've finished the basic outline, so I'm going to draw into it a bit more here. I'm just following the lip of the can, working my way around. Just measure where the line of the lip comes in and out of each square. That's all I'm doing. Right. If you can tell where a dot is on a line, you can do this. Is it halfway along the line? Is it a quarter of the way along the line? Yeah. And then look. Now, obviously, this doesn't look particularly spectacular at the moment. And if I was doing this for real, I sure as hell wouldn't do it this way. But this is good for getting you started. It gets you an idea of shapes, and it allows you to copy things quite quickly. Here I'm just working on the sort of ring pool area. This is a bit trickier. I've chosen this can because it's a ridiculously simple shape, and I've chosen one that has a blank body because you don't want to get into copying the Coca-Cola logo or whatever. That kind of stuff is hard and requires you to do an awful lot more measurement. You might need a grid that's very high resolution in order to be able to do it. And yeah, just keep working my way around. Couple of dots. I am doing some dots that aren't on the grid lines. You can come off them, but you know, if you stick to the grid lines, you're definitely right. There we go, a few extra dots there. And straight line across. How hard is that? In a little bit, I'm actually going to compare this with the Coke can itself. Some people will say that drawing using methods like this is cheating somehow. It's all about the end product. It's all about the end result. It doesn't matter how you get there. Drawing with a grid is not cheating. What this won't teach you is how to accurately draw anything. This will limit you to copying pictures and stuff like that, and it's fine to work from pictures, but it's generally better to work from real life objects, which is why people always draw all those still lifes, bowls of fruit and stuff, because it's a thing that you can easily have lying around that you can consistently draw. It's very hard to draw moving people, say, because they move and you can't refer to them and measure stuff. So anyway, look, there's kind of the ring pool. Right, I'm going to paste in the can image, line it up, adjust the opacity, and oh look, pretty much spot on. See? Just by some dots on a grid, I've got an accurate drawing of the outline of this can. I'll fill in a few extra details, but that's basically it. The rest of it is well, shading. Shading is it's something that people often get wrong because they approach it in the wrong way. I'm not really going to go into shading here, but shading is mostly a case of measurement. I'm just concerned with actual line drawing here. So anyway, onto me background layer again, and I'm just going to keep doing a few more dots and work into this. Dot, dot, dot. Just getting the shape of the indentation. Slightly chunky curve, but yeah, what the hell. Right, this isn't too challenging to look at. Too challenging to look at. It isn't too interesting to look at. It's not too challenging to do. I'm just going to freehand this bit round without measuring, because I'm not too concerned. Na 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 na. Dot dot dot. You see, once you've got the dots down, you really are just joining the dots. It's not hard. And if you get a dot particularly wrong, like you can see on the right hand side of this can near the bottom, I've got one dot that's way out of place. When you join up the other dots, you'll see which ones are out. And it doesn't matter if you got one or two in the wrong place, as long as you got the sort of general gist of it. And there we go, this is the basic shape of the can. And yeah, it doesn't look quite as rubbish as it did earlier, does it? It's starting to look like a fairly respectable drawing. Ooh, noisy bin lorry outside. Oh, you probably can't hear it. Anyway. So I'll just finish off by doing the interior of the rim, and that should be about it, really. You can apply this technique to anything. Now, I mentioned earlier that some people consider this to be sort of cheating in a way. It really isn't, and you'd be amazed at how many artists have used this and continue to use this. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures in a minute that help demonstrate this point. Yeah, there we go. I'm just almost done. But yeah, that's basically right. Now I can go back and refine those lines until they're accurate. Or I could use a thin piece of paper on top, or a piece of tracing paper, and draw onto that using these as a sort of baseline. Just going to scrub out some obviously bad lines. But yeah, that's basically a reasonable drawing of a can outline. And remember, I'm drawing this with a mouse, You can do this well. There's nothing I'm doing here that you can't do. If the can did have a logo, I would measure and measure and measure and measure. Make as many dots as possible. Okay. If you were caring about shading, which I'm not going to go into, what you would do is look for the darkest tone in the picture, which in this case is the hole in the can, and you would try to draw the outline of that area. It's easy here because obviously it's that bit, but then you look for the next darkest tone, what's one up from there, and draw an outline. Yeah, here's a chap doing a bit of drawing using the grid method. You'll see fact, this is Albrecht Dürer, who was he German? German or Swiss? I can't remember. Did a lot of very fine engravings, and here he is using a grid. In this case, he's got some grid paper and this sort of grid display on the table in front of him. He's also got a candle. The candle is just to keep his eye at a consistent distance, because he knows if he sticks his face right up against that. Here's a picture of somebody. They're working from a photograph. They've drawn a rough grid over it, and you see they're doing exactly the same thing to build up the drawing on the right. I think that nose is slightly wrong, but they're doing fine. They're also working with tones this way. Here's another thing. This is a camera obscura. An interesting thing. It works just like a real camera. It's in a big box. There's a pinhole, and there's enough natural light coming in that it actually shows an upside down picture of what's happening outside, and that projects onto the wall. It sticks up a piece of paper and draws over it. I found this guy. It was quite interesting. He was talking about drawing portraits. Seems kind of weird because he's doing photographs, but you see he's got a grid. He elaborates his grids slightly to concentrate on the different features, but yeah, he's worked up this pencil outline in exactly the same way as we've just done this can. Not too bad, eh? Ah, here we go. So let's try to find stuff. But yeah, you can see a few things on here where grids are being used for measuring. The Dürer thing, well, yeah, he's doing grid work. He's a highly respected artist. Is it cheating? Is it hell? So we're just going to pop back to Photoshop here. Because there's another method I need to show you. This is a drawing I did for my desktop wallpaper. It's actually a lot more basic than it looks, but have a look at these. Texture. That texture I copied from a photograph because I couldn't be arsed drawing an intricate pattern. But you'll see this is actually very simple. I've stuck to about 4 colours. But, aha! See these sketch lines? These are me measuring proportion. And measuring. That's the lesson here. Let's just close this. And yeah, open up. So, yeah, here we go. This is a good image. Right, you see this guy? He's holding out a pencil at the end of his arm. The reason that he's holding it at the end of his arm, you'll sometimes see cartoon images of people painting when they hold their thumb out at the end of their arm while they're painting something. He's measuring. He holds the pencil in his hand at the end of his arm because that's a consistent measurement, and you see he's measured one head along. He's measured the sort of length of the head on his pencil, and he's holding his thumb there just to mark that bit. And then if you count along, you know, the whole length of the body is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heads. So you now know how long the body is compared to the head. So if you draw a line or a box to indicate the size of the head, you can very easily measure the proportion of the body. Now, the trick with the measuring approach is to measure and measure and measure and measure. Take as many measurements as you need. I'm just going to create a new white layer here, and we'll do a measuring approach. Now, if I go and look at the can picture, put that. Oh, I have so many hard drives. Pull up the can again. There we go. Now, I'm going to keep the grid here just for measurement's sake, but this could be, I could measure this any way at all. I could hold a ruler out at the end of my arm and use that. If I count across here, the can is 8 squares wide. Doesn't matter how big a square is, I just know that it's 8 squares wide. That's the important thing, because your measurements don't have to be absolute. In fact, get out my brush, I'm going to turn off the grid here. So I'm just doing this video in a oneer. Normally I edit things. I'm just going to draw a line. Doesn't matter how long that line is, but I'm going to say that line is 8 things long. Doesn't matter how many units. 8 units of measurement, because I know the can is 8 squares wide. And if I measure down the can, it is 13 squares tall. So I've got a line measuring the widest point of the can. It is 8 wide. I can use a ruler in Photoshop to help me, but it doesn't matter. In real life, when you're doing it on paper, use a bloody ruler. I'm now going to draw a line that is 13 units of measurement long to indicate the height of the can. Doesn't matter what the units of measurement are, so long as the proportion between the two is correct. You know, it's 8 by 13. So you could draw a line on your paper that is 16 centimeters across, and then draw one that is 26 centimeters long vertically. As long as you get the proportions correct, you're fine. Now draw another line for where the base of the can is, you know, the width at the base. I've measured that. I know that it's 6 wide. Now, up the top, actually, no, I'm going to make a new layer, draw on top of this with slightly transparent lines, just so you can see. I'm going to measure the width of the rim of the can. And that is 7 wide. It's all about measuring these and then getting the proportion. Now I can draw a rough ellipse. That meets with my measurements. See? Easy. I mean, it looks like hell, but don't matter. Now it's a straight line down the sides. And there's a curve at the base. See, now that's a terrible drawing, but the proportions are correct. So I can keep measuring and measuring and measuring. You know, where exactly does the ring pull fall? And if you can measure stuff and you can make marks on a piece of paper, you can draw. And this is the whole skill of drawing. It's measuring. The more you do it, the less you have to measure. Once you've drawn people's heads a few times, you will quickly come to learn that the eyes on someone's head are actually halfway down. If you measure that by holding stuff out, or you measure a head and it is 10 units vertically, you'll find that the eyes come in about the 5 unit mark. Most people, when they're drawing eyes without really thinking about it, will draw them about 2/3 of the way up the head, which is, you know, it looks wrong. So long as you get the proportions right, everything's fine. Oh, now obviously I haven't been drawing this to a scale, so I'm just going to drag in the can and resize it. But yeah, you measure and you measure and you measure. If I wanted to draw this can properly right now, I would maybe do as many as 100 measurements. But if I just scale this image and overlay it, see, the proportions are right. Even if the drawing itself is shaky as hell. But it's all about getting things in proportion. When you start getting the proportions wrong, everything else will look wrong. It doesn't matter how accurately you do it. Right, here's the thing. Now, obviously, this drawing of head is quite good, but see how he's taken this base measurement of A. A is his standard unit of measurement. Everything else, A over 2, well, a half A over 3, a third A over 4, a quarter of A. But A has become his base measurement. And A is the distance between the hairline and the eyebrows, just as it's also the measurement between where the jaw meets the neck and where the jaw meets the ear. And the more you do drawings, the more you start to understand these innate proportions. Just about everyone's heads are halfway down. Right, here's this guy. There's an artist called Ewan Uglow. I think it's pronounced Uglow. I think he was Scottish, but if you look at his paintings, you can still see all his measurement lines. He doesn't bother to completely hide them. Almost all artists draw using this method. Some rely on just technique alone, and that's why they're not very good. But yeah, you see on almost every Uglow painting, you can see the underlying construction lines. And his stuff tends to be quite simple, but it's measure, 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 measure. And from the remains of the lines that you can see on this, you can see that he has taken hundreds of measurements. See? And you just keep doing this and doing this and doing this. You measure everything. You can see here that he's applied the colour in kind of patches. This is a kind of thing it is. When you're doing colour and tone, again, it's measuring and drawing. Just a basic sketch. Let's go anything more. Oh well, yeah. And you can see the sort of perspective lines and stuff on this. Don't worry about things like perspective. If you measure everything correctly, you never even need to know about these things. You know, drum it into you at school for no apparent reason. Measure, 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 measure. Now, I'm going to show you something here. This is a starter motor from a car engine. The way I learned to draw it was, I had one of these, not this one, but one very similar to it, and I sat and drew it every day for 6 months. Obviously these are not fun drawings to look at, but I just drew the same bloody starter motor over and over again. I hated doing it, it was tedious, it was very unpleasant. And, you know, what the hell was I going to do at the end of this with a couple of hundred drawings of a starter motor? I threw them in the bin. Yeah, here's a drawing. Ooh, that looks impressive. I did that as a quick test to my graphics tablet. This is not a good drawing. This looks like a good drawing. You might think it's quite cool. I'll dash this out in a few minutes. I'm just going to draw another one quickly. But it's cheating, that's all technique. I sat and drew eyes about a couple of hundred times until I had worked out the basic shapes and tones in an eye that make it look like an eye. To the point where I can bang out these sort of eye drawings very easily. See, I'm not looking at anything here, I'm just drawing this freehand from memory. And you see, I know there's a proportion of circles to circles to circles. I make the pupil a full circle that's completely visible, but I make the iris circle, it obviously has to be concentric with it. But, you know, when you look at drawings from, say, comics or whatever, they look very impressive, but they're actually all about technique. And that kind of stuff comes later. You know, I'm just roughly sketching this. Oops. I'll fill in a little bit so that you know, you can see the kind of way I go. I always leave this little white bit at the edge. I always fill it in darkest around the circles and so on. I'm not going to bother finishing this one. I won't go anywhere near finishing it, but just to give you an idea. This is rubbish. I learn nothing by doing this. You know, when you do a drawing and it doesn't come out right, have a look at it and try and work out where you went wrong. Every drawing you do that you're not happy with is just another step towards a drawing that you are happy with. You know, a bad drawing is something you learn from. A drawing like this does not improve my skill in any way. I can bang these out all day long and have people impressed by them. I do a particularly nice drawing of smoking fish. Yeah, people really like that, and I can work them up with some brilliant shading so they look beautifully 3D, and people go, "Oh wow, that's amazing, that's so cool, how do you do that?" I did that by drawing a starter motor for 6 months and then drawing 200 eyes. And I combined the skills that I learned from drawing the starter motor with the techniques I worked out from drawing these eyes, and so I can bang these out any old time. You should not be trying to do drawings like this. It's an utter waste of your time. The only thing that you can learn from doing these things is how to copy someone else's technique, and that's useless. What you're after initially is accuracy. Style and shit comes later. So, get yourself a measuring grid. Well, make yourself a measuring grid. I think you can even buy them. And just draw and draw and draw. If you do drawings every day for 6 months, your drawing ability will be massively improved to the point where you will be good. Not great, not amazing, but 6 months is enough. When I was at art college, I had this amazing lecturer, Brian Miller, and he looked just like Shaggy out of Scooby-Doo. Brian came in on the first day, and he said, "Right, I'm going to teach you everything there is to know about art. See, if I kept on with this drawing, it would look like that. I could work this up further until it looks even nicer, but I'm not going to. I don't care." And yeah, Brian came in, and he taught us everything there was to know about art in one afternoon. And seriously, one afternoon. I said, after that, it's just practice. And he was absolutely right. At my school, I was lucky enough to get to do technical drawing. Sort of CAD these days. But we did it manually on drawing boards and stuff. Got a picture here of some tools. Yeah. So, you know, drawing boards and compasses and all these kind of things. There's funny black shapes in the sort of bottom left. Those are French curves, the things I was going on about earlier. And when you're doing technical drawing, you're working from, well, designs and things. Like when we started, they would place objects in front of us, and we would have to do accurate drawings of them through measuring. And you measure with whatever tools are at your disposal. Oops, here I'm nicking a copyright image. And yeah, we draw like this, with lots of construction lines and stuff. This is how Ewan Uglow draws. Drew, is he dead yet? I can't remember. But this is how, when I started doing artistic drawing, I drew it in a technical drawing manner. I used all these tools, and I measured things over and over and over. Yeah, you know, there's a micrometer sitting there. I would, well, calipers, I think. Anyway, I would use these things. I would use rulers, set squares, protractors. I would measure and measure and measure. And that's how I started drawing for artistic reasons. It's also perhaps why I chose a starter motor as a thing to draw, because it's a machine shape. So I knew that all the shapes and curves and everything to it were regular. And measuring is what it's all about. As you gain experience, as you gain practice, you find you don't need to measure as much. You know the proportions. Like I mentioned, the eyes are halfway down the head. So I know that when I'm drawing a head, I can draw a sort of rough circle and draw a line about halfway down. That's where the eyes are going to be. I also know that the height of the eyes is approximately the same as the gap between the nose and the top of the lip, and so on and so on. So I don't need to measure those out. I can draw a series of grid lines and work from those. When you see all these how to draw tutorials and shit where they say, oh yeah, you draw a circle to do a head and then you do another circle, yeah, they're failing to explain to you why. They're failing to explain that it's all about these proportions. And if you've had to do all this measuring yourself manually first, you'll know why. You'll know how to do that. It really bugs me when they come up with these how to draw tutorials. What they're doing is teaching you techniques which will enable you to do cool drawings of certain things, but they don't enable you to actually draw. You won't be able to take a tutorial for how to draw heads and use that as the basis for drawing hands. You'll have to read another tutorial on how to draw hands. And learning all these techniques one at a time takes forever. It's an absolute waste of your time. If you ever want to be able to draw, practice, 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 practice. Oh, and if anyone ever says to you, oh, I can't draw, or you're so lucky to be talented, just punch them in the mouth. I hate when people say that. It takes away from the fact that you have to put in the time and the effort to learn how to draw. No one can draw like Leonardo da Vinci on their first try. No one's that talented. If anything, I find that talent gets in the way. Like I say, the kids at my school who went on to art college, and in fact, actually two of them are respected artists. Yeah, I'm a bit of a disappointment in that respect. The people who went on to be serious about art were not the ones who were talented. We were the ones who had to work at it. The ones who were talented just coasted along on that talent and never got any further. Yeah, I remember this guy in my class, Dom. He used to be able to draw these excellent little cartoon people. I think he became a policeman after that. You know. So, measure, 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 measure. That's the secret. There's nothing more than that. Anyway, this was just an aberration because somebody whinged at me about, I can't draw. Liar. If you can make a mark on a piece of paper, you can draw. You maybe can't draw very well, but the reason that you're not good at drawing is because you've never tried. It's because you're lazy. Stop making excuses. Oh, I don't have the talent. Yeah, you do. If you have the talent to hold a pencil and the talent to measure things, you have the talent to draw. Anyway, I'm not going to do any more of these, but gosh, if this somehow turns out to be a thing that people want to see more of, give me a shout. Maybe I'll actually do a series of this shit and actually go into some more detail and do some more detailed drawings myself. This is just a quick one through, and I'll be back to doing stupid videos about childish computer games soon enough. Anyway, if you hated this video, wow, I can't believe you got this far through it. Anyway, thank you for your attention, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!